Hello everyone, this is Tim Perfect from Twocanoes Software. I wanted to show you the work I've been working on for the new Mac app, Mac Deploy Stick, that allows you to create workflows and image a Mac automated with secure boot. This builds upon some other projects that are out there. It does allow you to run basically a UI inside the Recovery Partition that allows you to select a workflow and image, or not even image, be able to launch the macOS installer and run install packages as well in a fully automated way. It's also built on the installer project that Greg Nagel put out, which is a bash script that allows you to run from the Recovery Partition. So this allows you to do the same technique but with a UI on it. So let me show you how the app works to allow you to create a drive, and then I have a Mac here, a T2 Mac here, a new MacBook Air that'll show me how you actually use it and how you would install it. It's not completed. I just kind of give an update to get feedback from folks. So the UI is very simple. We have the ability to select a macOS installer disk image. This is required by Imager because it can pull resources off a server, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But you basically just select a DMG. If you're not sure how to make that disk image, you click on the little question mark, and you basically just run the HDI util command to create a disk image from your install macOS Mojave app. And then you select it in the app to be able to do it. The app itself doesn't do it because eventually I want to put this in the App Store, and they don't allow anything running as root. And as you can see here, it requires sudo. So the next section is workflows. So these are simply, if you hit plus to create a new workflow, you give the workflow a new name. I'll call this video workflow, and I'll say a demo of a workflow. And then you can select what packages you want to be installed, and we could be in users shared installed packages, installer packages. And then erase and install OS. And what this does is that when it boots up in the Recovery Partition, it'll wipe the drive, and then it'll go ahead and install the OS in it. If you don't have that selected, it'll just install the packages. And the idea behind this, it's very similar to what Bootstrapper does, which the idea is that it uses the OS that's already built into the machine and just uses packages to configure it. If you select this, it will erase the drive and erase the volume and restore or run the macOS installer to do it. So it gives you that option. So I'll leave that checked. I've already put some of the workflows I have in here. These are very simple ones. I put the packages in on my desktop, and then I have it erase and install, which is this one I'll be using to show. The actual packages are just a collection of packages I had. Normally you'd have the Monkey Agent or something like that to be able to install. So you can have as many of these workflows as you want. When you boot up into the Recovery Partition, in the Recovery Partition, you'll then be able to see these options and select these workflows. The other option is the Create Arduino Automaton. If we do this, I haven't actually finished this yet. This is going to be like the final step to be able to make everything so you don't have to type anything. Hold down the Option key and then plug in a drive, and it does it automatically. It's based on another project I worked on, but I haven't implemented that yet. You see there's two columns, active and default. The active one works, so if we take off active, it actually doesn't even make that one available when it creates the drive, so it's a great way to keep these here in the app. If you quit the app and you start it up again, it is all stored, and these are defaults, so you can just relaunch it and you'll have it again. The default is not used yet, but the idea is that once you have a default, you can have it run automatically. I haven't implemented that yet. So when you hit Save Resources, it prompts you select a partition. And so I have my Google Drive showing up here, which would make any sense to deploy to. I actually have a partition or an external drive, an SSD that has both two partitions. Let me show you those right now. So if I click here, and you can see that I have, they're basically just the same partition. And I will go ahead and on this install macOS Mojave, I'll delete the deploy folder. And so that's basically empty, and that's the one I'll select. So I'll go install macOS Mojave, and I'll click OK. And what it does now is it goes ahead and it starts copying over the Imager application with a configuration that points to the actual workflows that are in this Imager config plist. And then it copies the macOS installer DMG that we specified, as well as all the workflows that we have. And inside the workflows are the packages that we're going to create. And so the Monkey Agent one, I just threw in some packages that I had lying around just to show that they would actually install. So that external drive is now available to use. It's actually copying the Mac OS installer, which takes a little bit. Let me see where it's at. 4.42 gigs. And it goes up to 6, so it's about done. There it goes. It's finished. So now this external drive is created. And the next step is I'm going to boot to a recovery partition, plug this in, and show you how to in an automated way, image this Mac. Okay, I held the Option key down, and I'm now at the boot selector. And now all I'll do is simply press Command R to start booting into the recovery partition. Okay, I'm now in the recovery partition, so I'll just go up to Utilities and choose Terminal. The terminal will open up, and then I'll go ahead and make this terminal window a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. Actually, I'll make it a lot bigger. Plug in the external drive, and you can have it plugged in when you're booting up, or you can plug it in after you boot it up, either one. And then I'll do a ls on the /volumes, and we'll see that it's now mounted. So you can see that my two partitions are there: install macOS Mojave and Mac deploy stick. So we install the resources and install macOS Mojave. So I'll go ahead and run Imager, which is on the install macOS Mojave partition I created under a folder called Deploy Applications in Imager. And in order to run Imager in the recovery partition, we actually have to go into Contents, macOS, and Imager. Oh, I actually put ls in front of that, so I'll just remove the ls and hit return and run it. And now Imager launches, and there's Imager, and you can see that it has my volumes, the two partitions plus the Mac HD. I'll leave it on Mac HD because that's the one that I want to be able to erase and install. You can see here are all the workflows that are created, so I'll keep it on that first one, and I'll click install. And one of the nice pieces is that with the terminal window open, you can see what's going on. You do need network connectivity. Once the installer gets to the end, it'll check for firmware updates. So you got to make sure you connect to the network. One of the nice things about having Imager is it has this UI, and you can see that it updates the steps as you go forward. It does install it uses the start OS install command with the hinging of packages on it, and you can see that hinges it on the package I provided, and it's going through and copying the files over necessary, and then it'll boot into the installer and finish the installation and install those packages. So now we'll just wait for the reboot, and then verify that it did in fact install the packages that we expected, and then we'll go in and show you a little bit more about the app. The installation, or the installation is now completed, and it goes to stage 2, which is it actually boots into the installer and completes the installation onto the partition. I'll let this complete, and then we will jump back to the application, and I'll show you some of the other options that I'm working on. The installation is now completed, and it starts going through the Setup Assistant. The packages are all been installed, and if you had a package that enrolled in an MDM or put the Monkey or Jamf agent on there, those would now be available. So let's jump back into the application and show you some of the other things that I've been working on. Okay, I'm back in the application, and one of the things that a couple of the other kind of ideas that I had. One is I mentioned before the Arduino automation, or the Arduino automaton. The idea is that this will create an Arduino stick that will automatically launch the Imager So you just boot up the Recovery Partition, plug it in, and it'll launch it. Save you typing that command line. That's been all worked out in another open source project that I've worked on. The other option is if you go to Save Resources, there's this last option is Save Resources to Resource Folder for copying to web server. So the idea on this is, this one's not hooked up yet. If you go to Prefixed, like if you're hosting it on AWS or whatever, you can do fake or whatever, it's example.com/resources. And then it'll prefix all that in the configuration file. And then you just take the folder that it creates and copy that up to the web server. Then when you run that command, you don't need a thumb drive anymore. It just goes and pulls them off of that web server and installs those resources. It'll also install, the idea is to install a script that'll download Imager and run Imager, so you can choose your workflows from there. So that gives you an idea. And then, of course, we can tie that into the Arduino automaton, so it automatically launches the script that will pull down all the information. The script will, of course, be done from a curl command that's piped into bash, so you don't have to have any local resources. And I'm trying to, that really makes it, the Arduino, kind of important, because then the command gets a little bit more complicated. But I've already got that working where you plug it in, it runs that command, and you're off and running. And then the third option, the Save DMG for use of the virtual machine. This is the idea is that you can save all these resources to a DMG, then launch something like VMware and attach it, and then it'll completely set up that VM for you and the packages. And so it allows you to easily create that same resources, but in a disk image. So that's it. So I've pushed all these current changes up to the Bitbucket repository. I'm also going to do a release and hopefully do somewhat nightly builds and get feedback from folks. One of the things I was thinking about doing is making the ability to choose which OS you want to go with, which workflow, though I don't know if that's necessary because Apple's really focused on the most, the newest, latest, and greatest. So anyways, thanks for watching, and please subscribe to the channel or follow me on Twitter and give me some feedback.